I hope you can all hear me. Perhaps you can indicate, would someone, if we can see the other, there we go, would someone perhaps in the chat area indicate that they can hear me? I'm not so familiar with this. Oh yeah. Yes, yes, all right, we're ready to start. So we'll get back to the presentation, which is...
This window down there. No, this one.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've entitled this 7 Steps to Improving Your English. I'm going to speak slowly and clearly, I hope. I hope even people who are not confident or don't speak English well will also attend this webinar and ask questions. I have deliberately chosen a time which is convenient for people in Asia, in Japan or Korea or China. The last time I did a webinar, it was in the morning, my time here, Pacific Standard Time, which was convenient for people in Europe and North America, but it was not convenient for people in Asia. So, as I say here, I will speak slowly. People can ask me questions in their language or in English. If you are a learner of English, it's good practice to use English, but if you want to ask a question in Japanese, German, Spanish, Russian, Chinese, it doesn't matter. I will attempt to answer. Now, if you have questions, I think you can see the screen here, and you can see where you post your questions. And I will, once I've finished my presentation, I will attempt to answer these questions. Now, I'm going to talk about 7 steps that are important, and they're really important for learning any language. And I know this because I have learned quite a few languages myself. And the very first thing is that you must believe that you can learn. You must believe that you can improve. This is such an important concept. I see so many people who fundamentally, they don't think they're going to improve. And, you know, if you're trying to climb a mountain and you don't think you can reach the top of the mountain, you won't try very hard. And I know everyone can improve. So I think the first thing, the most important step is you have to believe that if you put in the time, if you make the effort, you will improve. Okay? Try to imagine yourself becoming a fluent speaker of English. Imagine that you are a native speaker of English. I have done this myself. When I learned French, I pretended that I was French. When I learned Chinese, I pretended that I was Chinese. When I lived in Japan and I was talking with a group of Japanese people, I pretended that I was one of their group. So it's almost like play acting, but you have to believe that you can improve, and you have to imagine yourself becoming a fluent speaker of English or of any other language that you are learning. The second thing is, give yourself a clear and attainable goal. All right? Now, if you simply say, I want to improve, that is a nice goal, but it's very hard to measure, because very often when we're learning a language, we have the impression that we're not improving. Somehow we think that we're more or less staying at the same level, even if we are not. So it's hard sometimes to tell if we're improving or not. However, there are other goals that you can measure. In other words, you can say, I'm going to listen an hour a day. And you either listen an hour a day or you don't. But that's a real goal. Or you're going to read an hour a day. And you're going to do it for the next 6 months, let's say. You know, at Link we have these 90-day challenges. And the reason is because it's very useful to give yourself a clear, short-term goal. A goal in terms of your level of activity. In terms of what you are going to do. Not in terms of, I want to improve, I want to be fluent. All of these things will come if you put in the effort. But the first thing is to give yourself a clear, measurable goal that you can achieve. So that's tip number 2. And these are all things that I have done in my learning. The third thing is to get outside your comfort zone. I see so many learners who only ever listen to lessons and language content that has been prepared for learners with lots of repetition, lots of easy vocabulary, spoken slowly. And then when they go out and speak to real people, they can't understand. So it's very important, as early as possible, move away from learner material, textbook material. Find things of interest, which nowadays we can find on the internet. I happen to be studying Polish, and I have found wonderful material on Polish history, novels, which I am learning, and I'm using, of course, Link to acquire the words and phrases, but the material that I'm listening to and reading is interesting. Everyone, I think, should have as a goal to read a novel in English or the language you're learning. You can't always just read short texts prepared for you at the school. So get outside your comfort zone. That's the third tip. Now, we will be sending you a PDF of this whole presentation, so if you're not, you needn't worry about taking notes. You will get this, and you will also receive a recording of this presentation. Now, the next thing is, treat learning English as a game. In a way, I always feel that when I'm speaking a foreign language, I'm playing a game. It's imaginary. It's make-believe. And to that extent, and for that reason, sometimes it's less stressful. It's a game. So sometimes I make a mistake, but it's magic. It's magic because it's a game. And so it's very important that I listen to things that I find fun and interesting. And when I'm speaking, I pretend I'm an actor. I have fun with speaking this other language. It's a world of make-believe. I pretend that I'm Chinese or French or Russian. So try to have fun with it. Okay? That's very important because language learning takes a long time. So you want to enjoy yourself while you're learning. Now, here again, we are always going to forget words. We are always going to forget grammar rules. Learn to be happy when you forget words and happy when you forget grammar rules. And why should you be happy? Because there is a lot of research on how the brain learns. And when we learn and forget and relearn, learn a second time, we learn it better. If we try to sit there and learn a list of words and force that list of words into our brain, the brain starts to push back and it's very difficult to learn. But if you learn and then forget, you kind of knew the word but you couldn't remember the word, that's good because the next time you will maybe forget it again. But by the third time, you will learn it very well. So remember, learning and forgetting is at the heart of learning a language, and it's at the heart of learning English. The same applies to making mistakes. Be happy when you make mistakes. You have to make mistakes. If you are not making mistakes, then you're not getting outside of your comfort zone. The mistakes are your friends because very often you know when you made a mistake. In fact, sometimes you'll say the word correctly one time and make a mistake the next time, and the next time you say it correctly, and this is natural. And when you notice your mistakes, even after you've made the mistake, you notice it. This is good. It helps you notice the language. So making mistakes is also helping you to learn. So be happy when you make mistakes. And now the final tip is, and this is extremely important, trust your instincts and just communicate. Don't try when you're speaking, try to be sure you got the right word or that you said it correctly. If you listen a lot and if you read a lot, your brain is slowly becoming accustomed to English. And so when you speak, you're going to speak based on what the brain naturally wants to say, your natural instincts, and you will gradually improve. And so if when you speak, you try to remember grammar rules and you're trying to be so careful, in fact, you won't speak as well and you won't speak naturally. If, on the other hand, you just let go and trust your instincts, you will speak better and you will also improve. So, those are my 7 tips. As I say, any of you who have signed up will be receiving a PDF and a recording. And we also I want to thank you for attending. And as a token of my appreciation, you can, with this coupon code, 1 month free, you can get a free month at Link. So now let's move. And also, of course, we would love to hear what you thought about today's seminar. And of course, now we would like to go to the question and answer period. So I'm going to switch this if I know how to do it here. And now, where is... No, I have to find... No, that's not it here. Mark? So how do I get to the question and answer here? Well, I finished the presentation now. How do I get to the question and answer? We're sorry here. I'm not so proficient at this. Here we are. Okay. All right. Now we're going to get to questions. It should start in 10 minutes. Let's see here. Well, I see a number of people from different countries. And remember to send in your questions. I don't see any. I cannot hear anything. No, it's not okay. Okay. First question here from Gabrielle Silva. Should I search every word that I don't know every time I come across it? You know, it depends what stage you're at in language learning. If I'm reading a book, not at the computer, I tend not to look up words. But I don't read a book away from the computer until my vocabulary has reached a sufficient level so that I can read a book comfortably. And so most of the time when I'm reading at Link. And every word, I don't know, for those of you who are familiar with Link, if I see a word that I'm not familiar with, I will immediately save that word to my database. I will see some dictionary definitions. That word is now changed from blue to yellow. That word, the next time I come across it in my reading, it'll be highlighted in yellow. I do a number of things with it. So I tend, if I am reading on Link, I tend to look up every word that I'm not sure of. On the other hand, if I'm away from the computer, I don't bother looking things up. And the reason is because when I look things up in an ordinary dictionary, it's very time consuming, and we forget when we look things up in a dictionary. So in Link, if I look it up, I know that the next time I come across that word, it'll be highlighted in yellow to remind me that I have seen the word before, and I review the meaning again, and so forth. But if I just look something up in a dictionary, once I close the dictionary, it's gone. So once I'm reading on my own, I tend not to look the word up. Here we have, let's see, okay, when and how can I find native English speakers to practice in speaking? You would have to Google language exchange. There are a lot of people who offer language exchange and people who might be interested in learning your language. Question, flashcards, are they good for acquiring vocabulary? You know, it's very much a matter of what you like doing. I don't spend a lot of time with flashcards. I review my words in context while I'm reading. But for those who like using flashcards, many people swear by using flashcards. Question, how many words per week? Like, you know, since I started into Polish, I think I've acquired another, you know, in a month, 10,000 new words. So that's a lot. However, I speak, you know, Russian and Czech and Ukrainian to some extent, so that helps me with the Polish. Now, let me just go back up here. The coupon code again, all right. Let's just see. I will, before I close it out, you'll get the coupon code when you receive the PDF file. So you will receive the coupon code for those of you who weren't able to write it down. Now, let me just see here. How does webinar work? Well, webinar is simply a presentation over the internet. What do you think about the idea of speaking from day one? What do you think of methods like Michelle Thomas? I am not a believer in speaking from day one. But some people like doing that. The reason is that I like my learning activities to be meaningful. Day one, I have very few words. I don't understand. I can't communicate. I can't speak. So I prefer to spend my time listening and reading. And I delay speaking until I'm actually able to understand what people are saying. And that, depending on the language, it might be 3 months, it might be 6 months before I start speaking. However, there are people who like to speak earlier. And when I lived in Japan, of course, I was surrounded by Japanese people, so I would probably, you know, start speaking much earlier. How much input do you have to listen to get easier to communicate? I mean, these are, you know, I can't give you a number. You just have to experience it yourself. I think starting from scratch, a good 3 months makes you much more comfortable in understanding, and then pretty soon you have the confidence that you want to start speaking. Yeah, here someone says, in scientific writing, once I began reading articles, I underlined phrases that I could use myself. My writing improved immensely. Of course, the ability to write well and to write, for example, academic texts or business English requires you to read a lot, And when you read, underline key words and phrases. This is sort of equivalent to what we do at Link. I save a lot of phrases at Link because these are phrases that I want to be able to use. Question, should I choose an American or a British accent? This is entirely up to you. It depends what you consider more useful to you or which one you are more interested in. Now let's go up here. What do you think the main course for students in school who have learned 10 years or more English but cannot still speak? Yeah, a lot of people study English at school, but I think, sure, they should speak more if they can, but I still think a lot of that time was spent in class listening to non-native speakers, a lot of explanation of grammar. I think people should find subjects of interest, novels, audiobooks, things that are of interest to them, and spend a lot of time with it. And, of course, if you have the opportunity to speak, take advantage of that opportunity. But a lot of people who have studied for 10 or 12 years still can't read a novel. They still can't understand movies. So I always feel that if you have a strong base in your listening and reading capability, that the speaking capability will develop from that. How many hours a day do you dedicate to Polish study? Well, it depends on what other things are happening in my life. Right now, I'm on holiday with my 2 sons, my wife, and we're celebrating my 70th birthday, so we're busy and I don't have much time for Polish. We also had visitors in September from Sweden, and we traveled around the province, so I had no time. But when I don't have visitors, I would say that I spend an hour and a half a day. Perhaps 45 minutes listening and another hour and a half reading. Person says, I always try to listen to CNN, but it is hard to understand. Should I continue or choose something easier? I would continue, but for example, I don't listen to things that I don't understand. So, for example, in my Polish, I have an audiobook, and I also have the text for that audiobook. And so, therefore, if I listen and I don't understand, then I can read, and I can save the words, and I can listen again. So, it's important to listen to things where you have a chance of understanding it. Or sometimes if you're very familiar with the context, then that helps you to understand it. But just to understand things, to listen to things that you don't understand, it's not something that I would do. Just having noise on in the background, I don't think that helps a lot. Some people are saying, congratulations on my 70th birthday. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, a lot of people say, I want to find someone to talk to. This is true. It's important to find people to talk to, but make sure that your skills, your comprehension skills, are good enough, because you want to be able to understand what the other person is saying. And, I always feel very uncomfortable if I don't understand. I am more concerned about understanding, and if I have trouble expressing myself, it doesn't matter. But if I don't understand, and I always have to ask, I beg your pardon, excuse me, I feel very uncomfortable. So make sure you work on your listening and reading, and then Google for different language exchange opportunities. And at Link, we also have the opportunity to talk to native speaker tutors. Here's a question. Does age have a factor on learning? Do you think now your ability for learning? Okay, I am 70 yesterday, and I think I'm a better language learner today than I was 50 years ago. I've learned more languages in the past 10 years than at any similar 10-year period in my life. So I don't think age has anything to do with it. I think it's more a matter of interest, motivation, confidence, and making sure you spend enough time with the language. I have a Dutch accent. How can I lose it? Is it even possible to lose an accent? This is very individual. I had a banker who was Swiss and who spoke with a very heavy Swiss accent like this, and yet he spoke English better than most native speakers. His use of words, his ability to express himself, all of this was better than most Canadians. So I wouldn't worry about accents. If you want to try to reduce your accent, very often it's a matter of the rhythm and the intonation. You can listen to content. For example, if you're using Link, you can listen to some of the audio and then say the same sentence yourself, trying to imitate the intonation and not worrying so much about individual sounds, but rather getting the intonation right. But personally, I think that one shouldn't be too concerned. Many people that I deal with speak flawless English, better than many native speakers, and they have a slight accent. So pronunciation, it's just a matter of I think, getting the rhythm of the language, a lot of listening. If you have, what helped me in Chinese, for example, where there are tones, was that I had some favorite material, xiangsheng, like comic dialogues that I used to listen to, where I liked the voice, I liked the rhythm. And if you can find an audiobook or a speaker or someone that you like and you like the voice, just listen to it over and over and over again. Yeah, somebody says here, when I listen to a UK accent or a math class with an Indian accent, I end up with that accent. Yes, to some extent if we are learning a language and another language, we are easily influenced by the accent we're listening to. This doesn't happen in our own language. We tend to stay with the accent that we had as children. It's kind of hardwired in us. But when we speak a foreign language, we tend to be easily influenced. So the only solution there is make sure you listen to a lot of content of the kind of accent that you would like to imitate. Here again, someone says, I feel afraid to speak to native speakers. They will question my ability in doing other things. Yes, we are afraid that when we speak a foreign language, then we somehow sound less intelligent than when we speak our own language. And that is so, and it can't be avoided. When you speak your own language, you have a big vocabulary, you have complete control, you're able to express yourself very well, perhaps elegantly, and when you speak a foreign language, you can't. There's nothing you can do about it, except that you should continue listening and reading and speaking at every opportunity and not worrying about, people don't judge you because you speak with an accent. You know, how many years to reach a native level? Very few people are going to reach a native level. I don't think that should be the goal. I think the goal should be just to improve our ability to communicate. And that is best done, as I say. Now, here's a question. Do you think that choosing a topic is good to develop vocabulary for that topic? Well, again, most of my conversations are natural, so I don't necessarily choose a specific topic. I just talk. I choose a subject that I like to listen to or to read about. But yeah, I don't worry too much about preparing, you know, vocabulary ahead of a conversation, because, in fact, there's a bit of research that shows that preparing the vocabulary ahead of a conversation really doesn't work very well, because you end up not really remembering that vocabulary. Just communicate. So is it bad to listen to the same record many times? To some extent, when you're starting out, it's not a bad thing to do, but I think later on, it's better to listen to things that are interesting. But, yeah, a lot of people are concerned about their pronunciation. Now, how can I use my 1 month free in my existing account? Where do I put it down? I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but I will find out. Now, do you think choosing, now let's see what else we have here. What is your source for listening? Well, it depends on the language. I mean, I've had to find material for languages like Czech and Romanian and Portuguese and Korean, and you have to search, you have to Google. One thing you can do is, if you don't know how to say in your target language, say you're interested in sports or you're interested in economics, then go to Google Translate, translate that into the target language, and then search on Google. And you'll find podcasts, or you'll find other material. Okay, well, I think that's about it. Age, develop a British accent. Now, let me see if I can find out from my assistant here. How many times do you listen to a lesson? Okay, here's a question. How many times do you listen to a lesson? Again, at the beginning, I listen often because I can't understand it. I listen once, I don't understand. I listen once, I read, I understand some, I listen again, I still don't understand. And so initially, I might listen 5, 10, 15 times. But very soon, I move on. And I don't just listen to one lesson. I listen to 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then back to 1, and 2, 3, 4, and back to 1. But within a month or so, this is becoming boring. And so I tend to want to challenge myself to listen to more interesting material. So I will often move on before I fully understand the last lesson. Question here, reading 19th century novels, good or bad? I liked reading 19th century novels when I was learning Russian. I read a number of 19th century novels. I enjoyed Balzac in French, you know, I Promessi Sposi in Italian. But it's a matter of what you're interested in. Steve, how many times speaking to tutors on link every time 15 minutes, is that enough? Personally, I find that when we are very much beginners, 15 minutes is a lot, because it's difficult to maintain the conversation for 15 minutes. But as we get better, we can go for half an hour, once a week, twice a week. That's kind of what I would recommend. Do you use to learn entire useful phrases, start speaking another language? You know, I save phrases, important, you know, useful phrases. In the case of English, for example. Okay, here we have a phrase. In the case of English, insofar as English is concerned. These are phrases, very useful phrases that help us introduce our thoughts. I would try to learn phrases like that. Learning phrases is an important part of learning a language. But you can't sort of collect a bunch of phrases and start using them. You have to, it's more a matter of noticing them. I save them when I'm studying, and slowly they sort of become part of the words that I can use. We had a question here. People who are members, what can they do with their coupon? Okay. So then the free coupon at this point is only for new members. We are trying to attract new members to Link, so I'm terribly sorry that at the present time, but it's something we should think about. Perhaps in the future we will have something for our loyal and existing members whom we very much appreciate. All right. Song lyrics, absolutely. If you like listening to songs and if you're singing along, you're practicing the songs, that's a good thing to do. Now, a person here says Google Translate doesn't always translate it correctly. This is true. However, it depends how you use Google Translate. When I wanted to find a Polish podcast on history, I went and, Historia Polski podcast. I put that in there and up came what I was looking for, or ebooks, or whatever it might be. So you just have to learn to use these, tools like Google Translate for what they are, but they aren't perfect. So, okay, I think we've more or less covered everything. I've answered most of the questions that I found. Let us know what you thought of the webinar. We hope to have more of these. And anyone who signed up is going to receive the PDF and the recording. And, of course, the PDF will have the coupon there so that you can get your free month at Link. And we wish you success in your language learning. Now here, we'll give a few more showed up, a few more questions. Okay, is it possible to improve my speaking skills only by watching videos? Okay, ultimately, in the end, to speak well, you have to speak a lot. So you have to find people to speak to. But if you don't have a lot of people around you, you can build up your vocabulary, build up your comprehension skills through a lot of listening and reading. The biggest thing when you go to speak to a native speaker is you want to make sure you understand what the native speaker is saying, and the native speaker has a much bigger vocabulary than you do. All right? What do I think of the gold list method? I tried it, but I wasn't able to continue. It ended up taking a lot of time, and my preferred way of learning words is to simply read in Link. And I'm constantly reminded of words that I have met before and saved, and I just find that quite naturally, unconsciously if you want, I'm accumulating lots of words. Writing up lists of words, it's just not something I like to do, but many people like to do it, so it's a matter of what you like to do. Okay. Thank you very much, and I look forward to doing this again, and we will let you know when the next webinar takes place. Thank you. Bye for now.